everyone, I'm Maddie and today we're going to be talking about how I managed not to live paycheck to paycheck while working at Disney.
Alright everyone, put on your opera glasses because it's time to present Maestro Mickey Mouse and the Philharmagic Orchestra.
This idea actually comes from Instagram, so I put up a poll asking what people want to say and budgeting won out pretty clearly. Seems like what you guys want to know, and so often I see on the different Facebook groups, whether it be culture exchange or college program, they're constantly asking about how can I either A, make more money, or B, how do I not live paycheck to paycheck? And it seems to be a trend that a lot of people do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's possible to get by doing that. But today I'm going to go through how I actually managed to save. I ended up being around $1,800 US in total. So a decent amount. I could have probably saved more. So keep in mind, definitely not professional accountant or anything like that. These are just things that I did on the program that I found helped save me money. But in any case, this is my experiences with money on the program. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just general tips and tricks that I think you could possibly use if you are running a bit tight on money or you're just looking to save a bit more. So I think the biggest thing is eating and food and grocery shopping. And that's not to say I actually ate out a fair bit on my program. I was having at least like one quick service meal in the parks every week. Every once or 2 weeks I was going out to have dinner at a sit-down restaurant either at Disney or times the Universal City Walk or just somewhere. So it's not like I wasn't eating out, but I think you can save a lot of money by meal prepping, both in terms of grocery shopping and then also by taking those lunches and dinners to work, because 5 days a week you're going to be at work, and with a 6 to 8 hour shift or sometimes even longer, you're going to be having at least one meal at work 5 days a week. And so if you're spending money at the Mascateria, or I can't even remember the names of the other cafeterias, I didn't really use them in the other parks, but so if say you're working Magic Kingdom and you're buying lunch from the Mascateria every day, that's a fair amount of money, and it would most likely be cheaper for you to prep meals at home and take them with you to then eat in the break room. Now for me this was kind of a necessity because a lot of the times I was down at Splash. Westside Grab and Go, generally all the stuff was closed by the time I started because closing shifts. And if you're working at Splash Mountain, our little mini break room is like behind Splash, and there's literally like maybe like 2 vending machines and that's it. So it was more kind of out of necessity that I brought food with me, but I definitely think that helped with just generally saving money. So when it comes to actually meal prepping and grocery shopping, I actually did do a video on this as part of my Week in the Life of a Cultural Exchange Program participant, which I will have a link to up here. So I highly recommend checking out Budget Bites. I'll have a link down in the description below to the website. They have amazing recipes, not only just generally cheap recipes, but also ones that are good for meal prepping and are often quick and easy to make, because I'll admit I am not the best chef, but I got by. And so I think keeping that in mind is a really great way to just save money. So then when you are going out to the parks, you can enjoy those quick service meals and the Mickey bars and going out for more fancy dinners as well, because you have the money to spend. And speaking of eating in the parks, I wanted to talk about discounts. Now, when it comes to dining discounts, always check the hub because they do vary from time to time. Usually they range between 20% up to 40% in some places, and keep in mind that tip is actually included. So if it says 20% discount, it'll be adding on an 18% gratuity automatically. So you're basically just getting either a 2% or a 22% discount on your meal without then having to worry about tipping, which makes life a lot easier, especially if you come from Australia and not used to having to do the mathematics involved with figuring out how much to tip. So that's a big thing. And in general, if you're looking at sit-down restaurants, usually lunch is the one that will get you more of a discount. Unfortunately, in the parks, most quick service restaurants, I think Animal Kingdom is the main exception, at least when I was there. For the most part, we didn't really have discounts, but if you want your Dole Whip fix, take, at least when I did the program, so it may have changed, I don't know, check the hub, as I said, but rather than going to Aloha Isle in Adventureland, catch the monorail over to the Polynesian, because you'll actually get your discount there. A lot of the resorts quick service, you will be able to get your discount. So for example, I went to Port Orleans French Quarter quite a few times, and beignets were actually not too expensive there because of the discount, which was great. And also keep in mind that some places in Disney Springs, you will actually get a discount. For me especially, I went to Blaze Pizza a lot because first of all, Blaze Pizza was amazing and one of the only places that you could get decent pizza for not too much money, because I just wasn't a big fan of American pizza in general. I think it's just Florida pizza in general. And they have a really great discount and deal there. So definitely check as well for Disney Springs, because some of the non-Disney owned restaurants might still give you discounts on not only food, but occasionally some places even alcohol as well. And this doesn't just apply for food, it's also activities as well. So for example, while I was there, we got a cast discount for Splitsville, going to the movies, and also doing the Star Wars Void experience. We got a bit of a discount on that. So definitely just check the hub for discounts, because, and if you're going somewhere and you're not sure, it never hurts to ask. The worst they can say is no, sorry. Also, in terms of dining, kids' meals are your friend because they're still big. Or if you have other people, just buying one between multiple people and sharing, because those things are large. And if you're dining out at a table service restaurant, oftentimes you can get by between two people just ordering an entree and main and then drinks for each of you, and then it's plenty of food. I did that a couple of times. Oh my goodness, Sanaa. With the 40% discount, well, technically 22% discount, the bread service, like 3 curries and drinks, ended up being about $20-25 per person. It was amazing. So just random extra tidbit, if it's still on the discount list, you have to check out Sanaa, it's amazing. Otherwise, I know I said in a previous video that Cast Connections is overrated, and in my opinion it is, because I'm not a merch person. So a lot of the time, at least my experience with Cast Connections, it was a lot of mugs and things from the previous year. Sometimes you can get some decent shirts, a lot of the Run Disney stuff. So if you are doing one of the marathons and you don't want to pay for some of the merch, just wait a month or two and they'll all be at Cast Connections. But otherwise, in my personal experience, when it comes to buying merch, I am generally an indecisive person, which meant that generally I don't spend as much. But my personal strategy is, if I find something that I really want and it's quite expensive and I'm not sure about the cost, I will just go ahead and go, okay, I'll come back to that later. If I forget about it, then obviously I didn't want it as much as I originally thought. However, if I do remember it, I will come back and get it. The only exception to this with me was limited edition pins, because once they're gone, and they go quickly. So I have a few regrets about pins I didn't get to buy before they went. So that's the real only exception if it's like limited edition, but otherwise, give it a day or two or even a week and then come back and get it, because for the most part, unless it's really flying off the shelves, you'll be able to find it there, or you can ask a friendly merchandise cast member and we'll be able to help you find out where else you could possibly find it if it's still in stock. And just generally, personally, my mentality when it comes to spending money is, if you're getting paid $10 or $11 an hour, is that $15 purchase worth an hour and a half of my time working? But in general, I mean, I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I definitely could have spent more money. I didn't really do much in the way of staycations apart from my final night that I spent in Port Orleans Riverside. And I certainly went out dining a lot, but most of my money that wasn't being spent on just day-to-day expenses was dining out, snacks, and occasionally merch, but not much, and experiences. So I did end up diving in a little bit to my savings for things like housing events. So keep in mind, if you're wanting to do housing events, some of them do also cost money. So for example, some of the ones that I did included a nighttime kayaking trip to experience bioluminescent water. What else did I do? I did another one. I also got to swim with manatees. Sometimes there are pool boy shows that come up, so definitely just keep that in mind as well. And of course, especially if you are extending, keep in mind that you're going to want to save up for not only the program fee, and if you're an international doing the culture exchange program, insurance. It's a big one. So essentially the other half of my video, I'm just going to be talking about my personal strategies when it came to budgeting. Now, for me, the biggest way I budget is just mainly by keeping track of my purchases. When I'm at home, I don't do as much budgeting as I did while on the program, to be completely honest. Basically, I just go, okay, I have this much money this month, and I'm just going to keep track of how much I'm spending and make sure the amount I'm spending doesn't go over the amount that I have. It works out pretty well, but if you're looking to be a little bit more judicious, I can highly recommend, I used it while on the program, what they call the envelope method. Now, I'm no expert, but basically the idea is that you're separating out your money into either, if you're using cash, you can use even literal envelopes, or in this case, digital envelopes, because I was just using a mobile app to track my budgeting. For example, my average paycheck was a bit over $200, usually around $220, $230. From that, I would set aside, say, $50 or $60 into a box. And that box is specifically for grocery shopping for that week. I would set aside $10 for my mobile phone bill, which I had to pay, it was $40 a month, so $10 a week. I would set aside a certain amount of money for dining and snacking, and then a certain amount of money for, say, entertainment, going out to do things like bowling, or seeing a movie, or buying merch. So I kind of separated them out into each of these blocks, and then whatever was left over would go into my savings. Now, at the start of my program, once I had my Blue ID and my social security number, I opened up a partner's account. It was free to do so as a cast member. I believe, at least when I did it, there were no fees associated with having a checking and savings account. You just had to have at least, I think, $5 in the savings account when you opened it. And it was great. So I set it up so that my paycheck every week was getting deposited into my basic checking account, and then from there, that's when I'd go ahead and sort out my budget for the week. So any leftover money from those particular envelopes that I mentioned earlier would just go straight into my savings account. I could still access it, so there were times, as I said before, things like housing events that were slightly bigger purchases or presents for someone, I would oftentimes dip into that a bit, but I always had that cushion, so I was usually putting at least between $50 and $100 into that a week. Now, the good thing about the envelope system is that some weeks I wouldn't need that $60 for grocery shopping, or however much it was that I put in that week for my grocery shopping. And I'd only spend, say, $30 on groceries. And so as a result, I meant that's another $30 that I don't have to put into that envelope the next week, and that can go into my savings account. So it kind of flows down from there. So it meant that no matter what happened, I knew that I had set this money aside for eating, and I set this money aside to make sure I could pay my phone bill, because if you're at least on the cultural exchange program, unless you have any kind of other payments that you'd be having to make outside of Disney, that's really the only expenses that you'll have that you really have to make, because obviously rent is taken out automatically from your paycheck, so that's money you don't even ever see. It meant that I was never tempted to make a giant purchase that I knew would then put me out of money, so then I didn't have enough for food. And so if you are someone that sometimes makes large purchases, it means that you're automatically then taking from the cushion that you've created in your savings, rather than from the money that you need for basic necessities. And that's basically how I got through the program. Now, towards the end of my program, in the last month or so, that kind of got thrown out the window. I already had a bit of a cushion, and I think I had around $1,600, $1,700 at that point in my savings, and it kind of stagnated from there, either because even though I was putting more in, I was taking more out because I was going out dining a lot more. I had a drinking around the world, which I think cost me around, it was at least over $130 for that, between the food and the drinks for the day. That was a fun time, but a very expensive time, but I saved up for it. So having this cushion either means, if you're the sort of person who wants to go on staycations or wants to plan an extra trip to Disneyland or is looking to extend and needs extra money for insurance, you've got it there, it's fine. Or like me, take it home and then you've got a bit of extra savings, which somewhat offsets the costs of the program. Because I spent a bit over 5,000 Australian dollars, I came back because of the exchange rate. I think I ended up coming back with around 2,000 Australian, just because of the way the exchange rate worked. But at the end of the day, this is just how I did it. Certainly, if you personally have any other tips or tricks in terms of either saving money or budgeting, pop them down in the comments below. If you have any questions about how I did it that I may have missed out, again, down in the comments below, or message me on Instagram, or tweet at me on Twitter, because that's a thing I'm now doing again apparently. So yeah, I think it's absolutely possible to save money on the program and still have a great time and not feel like you're missing out on things. To be fair, I don't drink tea or coffee, so that's one expense that I don't have to deal with. I didn't have any kind of debt or bill because in Australia my student loan doesn't need to be paid off until after I start earning a certain amount. So I didn't have any kind of active things that I also had to be paying off in addition to going to Disney. I didn't have a car, so I didn't have to deal with car payments or gas. So certainly I can understand that for some people, they're essentially, this extra bit of savings might be going into all that, and hence why they're living paycheck to paycheck. But for the most part, it's perfectly doable. So thank you very much everyone for watching this video. Now, once again, I'm still not entirely sure what I'll be doing for my next video, so stay tuned on my Instagram for a poll coming up to ask what would you like to see, because I feel like that's working pretty well for me so far. And until next time, TTFN.